11:59 at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our Daily Gun Show. We come to you live every day at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, for about an hour or 90 minutes each day. Cover 3 gun-related topics, different topics throughout the week. We run it live on YouTube and simulcast it over at gunchannels.com. We're watching the live chat with everybody that's joining us live over on Gun Channels and over at YouTube. When it's all over, we'll take the audio from it. We'll turn it into a podcast on iTunes. So we encourage anybody that's listening to the show now, live or in the future as a podcast or on YouTube, to give us some feedback on whatever platform you're listening on. That does help us know where people are listening, and it helps get the show to be recommended to more viewers, and that's been working. So we do appreciate the people that have been doing us that favor. There's a bunch of hosts. 4 of us are here today. We've got Bob jumping in from Canada normally. He's down here in Tucson right now. Thanks for jumping in.
Oh, glad to be here.
We got Smeggy jumping in from Michigan, I think. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, hey, how's everybody doing?
Good. And then we got Dano jumping in from Illinois. Thanks for joining.
Yep, I made it.
We got Zeal jump in here a bit from Maui, and then I'm down here in Arizona as well. So today is Tuesday. It's episode 272, and we'll be talking about the Second Amendment, top 5 worst gun laws out there. We have a good idea, bad idea segment on Tuesdays, and then we'll be talking about Maryland. And our friend Marco is from Maryland and is driving today, so we're going to try to bring him on with a speakerphone, see how that works, and he can give us some info about Maryland laws when we talk about that. But before we jump into everything, we usually take a break before we start to talk about anything that might have happened overnight, anything worth talking about.
Not in my area.
All right.
I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, we had Matt's chat last night. I know there was something I was going to bring up, but I'm not all with it yet, so we'll...
I got something real quick. Sorry, I had to change my tab.
Oh, no worries.
And it's still showing I'm muted, but obviously you just heard me, so I don't know what's going on with my computer. Anyways, something that happened with the Supreme Court guy. He's doing his hearings right now, and it was just kind of noteworthy. So Feinstein asked him something about, like, what do you think of Heller or something? And he's like, well, I mean, the law is the law. And she's like, no, but what's your, like, personal opinion? Like, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it doesn't matter what my personal opinion is. It matters what the law says. So I thought that was a pretty good response. She kept trying to, like, bait him into, like, arguing or whatever or something. He's like, you know, I plan on following the law. That's what I'm going to do. So I don't know. I think that's pro-gun because the letter of the law of the Second Amendment is good for us. So if he follows that, we might get some even better rulings. Because Heller, although good, does have that crappy line about, well, some stuff, like weird things can still be regulated. And that's how they go after AR-15s and whatnot, because they're like, see, it's not common. We can go after it. He said so. So it'd be nice to get rid of that part of it. But anyways, that's something that was, I think, encouraging. I still don't know exactly what all of his, like, what his record would be on gun type stuff. He hasn't really ruled on a lot of gun things. But if he gets in, I hope he would respect the Second Amendment because that's what the letter of the law says.
Any information on his personal life in regards to hunting, shooting, anything like that?
I don't know of any. I did a quick search on him. I don't know a lot about him, to be honest.
Okay.
I don't think he goes out of his way to be pro-gun or anything, but that doesn't mean that he'll be a bad judge either.
Yeah, as long as he follows the law as the Constitution was written, he should be golden.
I would hope so.
Can't type here.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we can dig into the first topic today will be Second Amendment issues and the top 5 worst gun laws proposed or passed. So where do we want to take that one?
Is it we talking federal level or state level, or does it matter? Because I would like to nominate the New York Safe Act as one of the worst gun laws.
Oh, here.
And another one, it's hard to pick this next one is because they're always coming up with variations of what I'm about to say, is the various gun bans they've attempted to do over and over and over again. Whether it's black gun bans on state level or on the federal level.
So like the 94 assault weapons ban, where then some states kind of adopted that. So even after the federal law sunsetted, because at least they were nice enough to put in, after 10 years, it has to get reapproved, and it didn't, which is good. Hooray. But, some states like New York and California and some other ones, they just kept with it. They're like, nah, we're going to keep it.
Sorry.
No worries. So we got Mark joining us, so hopefully the connection will work. And if we want, we can switch over to Maryland since we got Dano for a limited time and Marco here at the same time.
Yeah, we can do that and come back to 5 worst gun laws, because I do kind of like that topic.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. I'll go ahead and start off with the state of the state, and Marco, when I finish, you feel free to jump in and correct anything that may have changed or may be incorrect that I happen to go through. But in my state of the state, what I have is Maryland state laws, which does not include laws by individual cities, is as follows. The cities may preempt state laws on guns, such as assault weapons. There is an assault weapon ban, both on long guns and pistols. You need a permit to purchase pistols, but not long guns. They do register handguns, but not long guns. There is no owner registration, so there's no FOID card situation there. The concealed carry may issue, but rarely given. The mag limitation is in effect 10 rounds. NFA items are banned. Background checks for private sales are required for pistols. So, Marco, is there anything that I said that was either incorrect or has changed as far as the state of the way things are?
NFA items are have always been allowed, at least since I've been purchasing guns for the last 5 or 6 years. The only thing now, since the assault weapons ban kicked in, there is an overall length issue of 29 inches. So you can't make like a super choppy SBR. But NFA items have always been allowed, at least since I've been purchasing firearms and have known about them. But SBRs are allowed to a certain shortness, I guess you should say.
So you can have a short-barreled rifle, as in the barrel is short, but the overall length still has to be 29, which kind of defeats the purpose of having an SBR.
Exactly. And while the assault weapons, it's kind of weird. So the assault weapons ban is in place, but it's specific modeled ones. So like they just went through the entire list of what they knew about, and the Tavor had just come out. So the Tavor is not listed as an assault weapon, but it's short. The 18-inch with a regular, comp or flash hider makes it under 29. So you have to get like this funny looking 3-inch long flash hider, and then you hit 29 inches. So there is an assault weapons ban, but if someone were to come out with a brand new cool rifle that's semi-automatic magazine fed, it wouldn't qualify under the assault weapons ban, which is funny. And you're right. So I don't know if rifles are registered or not, but I know like when the assault weapons ban kicked in, if you move into the state, you then have to register your rifle, and it has to be purchased before. You have to have proof that it was purchased before the assault weapons ban kicked in. So that's kind of weird.
And when did that kick in? Was that recently or
October 2013?
2013. So if you're in another state and you bought a gun in 2015 and then you move, and it's like an AR-15, let's say, right? Because I'm assuming that's one of the ones that's listed. You wouldn't be able to bring that with you.
No, you'd have to sell it before.
But if you bought it in 2010 in whatever state you're in, and then you move, you just have to like register it when you get there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I wonder why they want that registered. Is that because maybe someday they'll come and take it? I mean, come on. That's what they like to do. Oh, we just want a registration. We don't want it for anything else. Oh, by the way, you're not allowed to have it at all. We're coming to take it.
I just need your name, social, and address.
Yeah, just cause we're best friends. That's all. We're not going to hurt you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on the NFA. I mistyped that. My source of information backs up exactly what you said. I just mistyped the NFA item.
And so the other, I mean, like, it's funny because like as I've already mentioned, Maryland's assault weapons ban has a bunch of loopholes, and I love me some loopholes. So, for example, because the assault weapons ban is based off of rifles, it cannot affect pistols. So you can still build your own AR pistol. You can't purchase one because they won't let them be sold in the state, but you can build one up yourself. And technically, all AR lowers have to be purchased as other now, and you can still build yourself an H-bar, or you can even buy one. Like Daniel Defense has an H-bar that's out there. The receiver must be stamped H-bar if you buy it complete like that. And the funny thing is that by doing this, by eliminating the sale of assault weapons ban or whatever like you want to call it, any receiver stamped H-bar and sold complete is now a cash and carry item. So handguns are registered. There's a 7-day wait period for that. You have to get a special license just to be able to purchase a handgun. But now all I have to do is get a bull barrel AR-15, and I can pay $1,000 over the counter and wait for my 4473 to clear out, and I can walk out the store with it. So what they were trying to do, literally, like and they don't care. It doesn't affect them at all because it never affected them in the first place.
So what is H-bar? You've said that a couple times now. I've never heard that term. What does that mean?
It stands for heavy barrel. So it's a certain contour or profile of the barrel. It's obviously a lot thicker. Usually used in competitions. It's actually a more accurate barrel than anything. It just makes the gun overall heavier because obviously the barrel is probably the heaviest part of the firearm. So you just get a really a heavier AR-15. So if a standard AR-15 is what 7-8 pounds, you're probably like closer to 8 or 9 pounds, 9 or 10 pounds probably. But its absolute function is identical. It's just the girth of the barrel and the amount of material on the barrel.
So you're saying you can buy an H-bar?
Yes, and it's cash and carry. It's over the counter with a 4473. There is no license required like there is for a handgun. There's no 7-day wait period like there is for a handgun. None of that. So while you can't buy a regular AR-15, you can buy all the H-bars you want in a matter of like an hour.
Well, I guess I'm glad they're dumb for that type of thing.
Yeah. Gotta love loopholes.
So let's what currently is happening in the legislature in regards to things being proposed in Maryland?
So there was actually like a gun. I think there was a gun bill day today or yesterday. I can't remember. But I knew I was traveling, so I didn't pay too much attention to it.
I know the answer.
All right, well then go ahead, Smeggy, because I know one was what was it? It was a domestic violence one that they were going to make you unqualified. That they basically
we got 3 of them. I can go over them. I got the numbers and everything.
All right, go ahead.
You can comment from your perspective, but quit stepping on me here. I did my homework today.
Gotcha, bro.
So, yeah, like you said, there are 3 bills that I saw that are going on right now. I'll start with the ante first. So that's Senate Bill 224, and it would prohibit firearm ownership from a person with prohibition from judgment in a domestic-related second-degree assault. So second degree does not require injury, only unwanted physical contact. And so if you didn't even get convicted, if you got probation, you still would be considered a prohibited person. And they say that, they should not treat convictions as the same as probation, but this one would. You know what I mean? So it's like,
probation is just a sentence, though.
Yeah, so, but it's different. It's different in the state of Maryland. What he's referring to is probation before judgment, and it's simply known as PBJ. So and like that happens a lot around here for cases that they don't even want to take to court because they just want to put the money and the effort into it. It happens a lot in DUIs where the person actually takes the plea and you're literally almost admitting guilt, but you're taking probation for a certain time. And if you do that probation for a certain time, it actually gets wiped from your, I mean, the charge doesn't get wiped from your record, but the fact that you were convicted actually gets wiped from your record. But it still shows that you pleaded guilty to something. So it's weird how it works. It can't stop you from, let's say, getting like a government job, for example. But if you were to catch another charge, it shows up, if that makes any sense.
And obviously, if you get caught doing something during probation, then you get in trouble for that thing and the original thing, because now you've like broken probation.
Yeah, because you're literally on probation for that time.
But the fact that it's probation before judgment means that you didn't technically get convicted of that thing. You just took probation before it even went to court.
Yeah,
and that's and I read further. It does say that in here. I missed that part.
It's commonly used in cases, like I said, that usually like in domestic violence, because that becomes like a he said she said, especially like if there's no marks or anything, or it's not a clear cut case, just a couple like arguing and throwing dishes at each other or something like that. It's commonly used in like simple domestic cases as well as DUIs, because if a person doesn't blow, all you have is the word of the cop saying that he was, he looked like he was under the influence. So when you have very little, I guess, evidence in the case, it's just probation before judgment. And a lot of people take it just because they know it's going to go away and it's not going to affect them that bad.
Right, and that's what I was just going to say. In that point of view, let's say you're being accused of, like I said, second-degree abuse, which means no injury. And it could just be like, someone said, hey, they pushed me. And you're like, no, I didn't. And there you go. So it's a he said, she said kind of thing. You might be inclined to be like, do I really want to go through all the courts and everything? Or all I have to do is take probation. I don't have to go to court anymore. Like I'll take care of it now, and I just won't get in trouble for a couple of years or whatever, and I'll be fine. So it's a pretty good incentive to just be like, you know what? I still disagree. They're still making it up. I never punched the person. I never hit the person, whatever. But I'm just going to take it anyways because nothing bad's going to happen. Well, now you might lose your gun rights if you take that. So you'll be more inclined to actually go to court and fight it and hope that you get found not guilty. Okay, so these other ones, there's a couple of pro-gun ones. House Bill 891 would change the requirement to obtain and renew a wear and carry permit, which I guess is their like CCW, that's what they call it. If enacted, the applicant would only need to take 6 hours of instruction, and to renew a permit, you only need to take 2 hours of instruction. So I'm not sure what it is now, but I'm guessing that that's less time than it is currently.
I remember one time they tried to push it to 40, but I believe right now currently it's 16 hours.
16 hours. That's a good weekend. I mean, that's good. That's 2 full days, no matter how you slice it.
I mean, and the way I've always been bothered by it is, like Maryland just has a high level of cost of living. So it's probably like in the top 5 cost of living areas, especially like if you're where I'm from, where like the more DC metropolitan area, it's third highest in the country, if I'm not mistaken. Take that into account, and then take into account how much it costs someone to teach you anything for 16 hours in the third most expensive place to live. How big of an infringement is that? I mean, like, you're limiting how many people can even afford to actually get this. I believe the concealed carry permit is only good for 2 years, and they keep it short. Like, I think 2 years for like it's either 2 or 3. I can't remember. And I think the renewal gets you like a shorter time. I'm not sure. But the reason why they keep it short is simply because since it's a May issue, if you don't have an ongoing, reason, let's say like death threats, then they'll cut your permit. I remember reading one case, someone took it to court where it was his daughter's boyfriend that like actually assaulted him, and he was on the loose. So he applied for the permit, and because he was on the loose, he was able to get it. Now 6 months later, he still had his permit, but they caught the guy, and the guy did like 8 years in jail or whatever. So the year and a half later, after the guy got caught, he was up for renewal, and they wouldn't renew the guy because his supposed threat was no longer a danger to him because he was now behind bars.
So Marco, you mentioned the cost of the class being very expensive. So what is currently the cost for a weekend class in Maryland?
I honestly, it's so expensive. I haven't looked into it in a while, but I remember when I first started looking into it, if you take the actual application, the fingerprints, the class, the FBI background check, the state background check, all the stuff you have to go through, it came up to like $800, the total process.
Yeah, so I'm guessing the class is probably at least a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So
and keep in mind, like that class like includes range time too. So you're probably looking at like 3 to 4, maybe. I mean, like what, like a James Yeager 2-day class is 5. I mean, this isn't that much, intense training. But I mean, if James Yeager wants to charge 5, what's going to stop another firearm instructor to charge 5 as well? You know what I'm saying? I really don't know. But it's an FBI background check. It's the application itself. It's the state background check. And I think they have to give you an answer in 90 days or something.
right. Well, and that kind of comes right into the next one, and this is the one that recently had some action. So House Bill 1036 is like, it's a preliminary approval. Basically, let's read this. So allows an applicant to obtain preliminary approval for a wear and carry permit before obtaining the required training. This will allow individuals to know whether or not they can obtain a permit prior to spending time and money on the required training, only to be arbitrarily denied. So it's kind of like, hey, if I apply for this thing, will you give it to me? And then you can find out if you actually get it. And if you are going to get it, then you can say, okay, well, now I'm going to take the training. And I forget, there was some time limit in there. Then you have to take the training within 60 days or whatever, and then you'll get your permit. But this one, just yesterday, it passed the House 97-41, and it's now in the Senate, and they just had their first reading of it the other day. So that's the one that just happened.
And I've actually been following that one very closely, and that's everyone always, so like legislators in the state of Maryland say, Marylanders don't actually want to, carry guns because we don't get that many applications in the first place. They've actually said that. And I've been in I guess legislator hearings where like the crowd actually like it's mostly pro-gun people, erupt in laughter. And everyone knows, because no one's going to cough up $800 for an 80% no. You know what I'm saying? And they're so arbitrarily about it. For example, like one of the reasons you can get it is because if you have a business license and you make large cash deposits. But what's large cash deposits? A couple $100 to me is large. You know what I'm saying? If you make $1 million a year, a couple $100 isn't large to you. So large cash deposits is I guess subjective. But yeah, I'm really interested in that, because it is so expensive that no one actually applies for it. I remember reading one report saying that there's just under 11,000 concealed carry permits in the state of Maryland. And what's funny is that actually includes police officers. So if you take away police officers, how many actual concealed carry permits are actually issued in the state to the actual citizenry? The other thing that I also thought was funny about that was a couple years ago, Maryland lost, because it was so hard to get a license. Maryland lost a federal court case, and all of a sudden it was like we were a shall issue state for like a matter of 10 days, and then they ended up getting a stay on the ruling. And in those like few days where it was open, there was like 20,000 applications that went in. So in just a matter of short period of time, more than twice the amount of people that already have concealed carry permits actually applied in a very short period of time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then there is one more actually that's going on right now. Is Senate Bill 946, and this is prohibiting the carry or possession of a firearm on the property of a public institution of higher education.
Yep.
And a violation would be a felony with the penalty of imprisonment not exceeding 3 years, or a fine exceeding $2,500, or both. And that's one of the things I did see in there. They're trying to get an amendment to change it from a felony to like a civil infraction or whatever, which that's still crappy, because I guess as of right now in Maryland, like if a campus wants to say, okay, yep, we'll allow concealed carry, they can do that. I don't know if any of them do, but technically they can do that, where this would make it a state law that they can't, like just nobody can carry on campus.
As far as that law being, like point blank, I mean, like no matter what, like you can't carry on a campus even if you had a concealed carry permit right now. And that's at least for like every like university like that I've been to. And that's just because of the county laws, at least the counties that I'm near. Now you go out to like the inland panhandle of Maryland, they're super pro gun out there. There's a major university called Frostburg State University. And I mean, I guess if they wanted to do it, they could do it. I have seen this law introduced several times in the last few years, and it's always gotten shot down simply because people who have concealed carry permits should be able to do it, and there's so few of them that there's no point. So, I mean, if you're illegal carrying, you're illegal carrying it. The part that I find interesting is they're actually increasing it now from a misdemeanor or whatever to a felony, and that, I mean, you're gonna get like one of the biggest shotgun trap and skeet ranges is 15 minutes from the largest university on the in the state of Maryland. It's University of Maryland College Park, and I've been there a couple of times. Right before class and go shoot some skeet. Can't take your firearm. Got to go all the way home and drop it off. So I mean, what's it really going to solve? And why? Like, I don't know. Like, why's it got to be a felony? Because it's standard 3-year misdemeanor. It's carrying concealed in the state of Maryland, and if caught, it's not a felony, but it's one of the most severe misdemeanors you can get, and it's up to 3 years in jail. So why does it need to be 5 for being on the campus? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's all ridiculous, and that's the thing, is that they just want to ban guns everywhere they can, and that's their ultimate goal. So anytime they can find a spot and be like, well, just this place, and then also just this place, and also just this place, next thing you know, they'll go after all of it, But
I'll tell you this, I mean, like what you told me as far as like, what did the other bill pass? You said like 90 to 40 something. That's a 2/3 majority, at least coming out of the House. And I mean, honestly, I mean, like the House is stacked the other way, as far as like D's versus R's. It's like 70% D's in the legislature. So the fact that it passed that high, a lot of people from the other side came over. So it's
right. Yeah, that was for the preliminary. So basically, you can apply for your permit before you get the training. They'll send you a thing that says, "Yep, as long as you get your training, we'll give you the permit," and then you can waste your time going and get the training and then filing for the permit itself. And that's the one that passed yesterday. So we'll see what happens on the other side. And then we'll see if it gets signed. I mean, that's one of those things. But all of these laws that was just mentioned have been posted over on everysecondmatters.com. Go over to State 2A, search the state over in the discussion side. You'll have to be logged in to post stuff, but you can post replies to it. That's the House bill number with a quick summary, and then every single one of them I've posted a reply to with a link to the actual like legislation website, and you can track it and see when amendments have been added, or see when it went to committee or came out of committee or whatever. So you can track exactly what happens all the way through the process.
You don't need to be a member or to be logged in to read anything on Every Second Matters, so you can use it as a reference and point people to it. It's just like Smeggy's saying, if you want to add to it, if you want to reply to one of the things that's there and give more information or a link to something else, then that's the only thing you have to log in. There's no cost to log in. You just have to create an account and then you can log in.
Right. Yeah, I just know that discussion thing because it's almost like it works very similar as like a forum, but we're using it for a very specific purpose of posting the bill, posting the tracking. But if you see something that is related to, progress of that, you can post it in there or have a discussion about it,
Yeah, definitely encourage discussions, because then that basically creates another point on the internet that's talking about, in this case, Maryland's gun laws or whatever the state happens to be. And that's needed. So when people go to search for stuff, that you don't want them to find Bloomberg's crap, because Bloomberg can afford to pay people who know how to make the internet work and can afford to, be at the end of search results, especially if Google, who has an agenda, is going to point people to their search results. So yeah, definitely anywhere you can, Every Second Matters, or any forum you might be on, gun channels, whatever. It's always a good thing to post links to valid info, and then whenever possible, make a comment about your post or leave comments to other people's posts. Those kind of interactions are what the internet uses to determine what's important, what's trending, what's useful, what's viral. And just sit there and reading it is one thing. It gets some information across, but the point of new media, using the systems the way they're intended to be used, interacting with them, actually gives it that kick in the pants that really gives it more bang for the buck. And the more people we can inform about this stuff, the better.
I'd like to ask Marco one other question. I know we only have you, Marco, for a limited amount of time, but where do you see Maryland in the next 5 years in regards to gun rights?
Locked up in the federal court cases. I mean, honestly, like it's you're talking about, I mean, like the legislature is so stacked against guns right now, at least in this state, that trying to they're literally like maybe like 3 counties that run the entire state, because those are the most densely populated counties. They're also next to the major cities. You got Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Prince George's County, and Montgomery County. If you take those 4, let's say, I don't know how many representatives like they have per county, but you take those 4 areas right there, it makes up like 68% of the legislature. And trying to get, I guess try to get enough, switching it from 70% to at least 50-50, it's going to be a lot harder work than just getting a federal court case directed towards Maryland.
Well,
or at least get a different state that's in the same circuit.
And they're the ones, I think I'm remembering correctly, where the attorney general recently was like, oh yeah, this assault weapons ban thing, it actually means all semi-auto rifles. Didn't she try that? Is that the state I'm thinking of?
No, I think that was something else. And because our state attorney general is a dude, and he's the one who actually wrote the law.
Oh, okay. Well, there was some other state
may have been
happening in,
I think, or something like that.
Sorry, like Daniel, repeat that.
No, I was just saying that what Smeggy was talking about, I think that was Massachusetts or another Northeast state.
Oh yeah, Northeast starts with an M. It makes sense. They're all the same. But anyways.
Yeah, so like what's his name? Robert Frosch. He's from my county originally. He was a state senator at the time of Newtown, and he's the one who drafted the bill, and he's now our state's attorney general. My governor is actually a Republican, and that's shocking in itself. But to not give him any credit, though, he hasn't done anything. I'm saying, like the NRA backed him. Like this was right after, shortly after Newtown, we had a Democratic governor, O'Malley, who actually ran for president. So there was a lot of hype, behind, yes, like as far as gun people, like supporting this guy, and he hasn't done anything. And the funny part is that the whole may issue part of concealed carry, it's a state police directive from the governor's office. It's not even in law saying we may issue you a permit if you have good and substantial reason. That is a directive directly from the governor's office. So the governor himself, without even doing an executive order, with just a directive straight from his office, can completely change concealed carry. And this Republican governor has not done that. Now, like, he did go through a battle with cancer. Like, he's probably been in office 3 years. I'd probably say, like, in his second year, he went through a battle of cancer. I think it was lymphoma. I'm not sure. And, like, give him a slide for that. Maybe he doesn't want to do it first thing. But the fact that he hasn't done it at all bothers me. And the fact that if he does it right at the end, the next governor, who's probably going to be a Democrat, could easily just switch the directive right back over.
Well, I might be a dick, but somebody doesn't take an office with the responsibility of office and then sit around getting a pass because they're sick. Get the hell out of there. You take that job to do it, not to have the prestige of it or something. And you certainly can't sit around when things need to happen to make the state run better, or to return people's freedoms.
That's true. I mean, well, like, once again, like, I don't know how ill he was or how, you know, how out of it.
Either way,
was, like,
I mean, the criticism stands that, like you said, he got supported to get in. You know, the NRA backed him and all that stuff, and yet there's been no pro-gun stuff coming out of that office for whatever reason. That's dumb. You should, you should do some stuff that people want you to do. So.
All right. Well, I posted a thing there. It sounds like you guys can get a Utah permit. I was looking to see how much your Maryland permits cost, and most of them are expensive, like you're saying, and they'd only hold them on intermittently because there's not enough demand to do them all the time. But there are a few places that did Utah permits because the Utah out-of-state non-resident Utah permit gives you Virginia and Massachusetts or with Pennsylvania, all the states around you. No, you're breaking up, Marco. You're breaking up now. Chipmunk. Yeah, we're not hearing you at all now. I don't know if you can hear us or not, but maybe just try jumping back in. Could be a connection thing. Dano just left. Who knows? I asked in the side or in the comments to people listening live if anyone has, lives in or drives through Maryland or whatever, and most people either aren't in that part of the country or do their best to drive around it. I wonder if they care or if they feel any, or I guess they'd have to study. They wouldn't feel it. They'd have to study to see what potential losses they'd be having for being unfriendly. I doubt that anybody's saying, "Oh, I'm going to Maryland because of how safe it is," because there's no guns there. I'm making my vacation in Maryland.
Well, at the same time, I mean, like, I've always advocated, like, helping your neighboring anti-state. You know what I'm saying? Instead of telling people not to move, how about you just write my legislator a letter saying, "Hey, listen, I live in Northern Virginia, 10 minutes away from Maryland. I'm in Maryland frequently because of how close you are. I promise you I will never buy gas, a candy bar, or a soda, or spend a single dime in your entire state, and I will stay thirsty until I get back to my own state because of your stance." So small states like me, I don't want to say we have a lot of tourism per se, but because we're small and narrow, there's constantly out-of-staters just, either they work here or they're just passing through, or they just happen to, come visit a friend because we're so close to other states and we're not a very fat state, I guess. But yeah, I mean, call California and tell them, "Hey, listen, I'm going to Disney World instead of Disneyland because of your stance." And instead of telling other people to move, do something yourself.
No, that's a great point, because there's 30 million to 100 million gun owners, depending on who you listen to or who's studying it. Imagine if each month or each week or however often in an increment we sent everyone sent a letter or an email or a phone call or all of the above just to a state to say something like that. I'm not coming to California, and here's why. I won't even consider it, and here's why. And if they continually get that to where, I mean, think about it, 30 million people bugging of a representative, would they be able to get any work done ever? What would they be able to do? They'd have to go on the news and say, "Oh, gun owners want their freedom so much that they're blogging the work." That's a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Right. Well, and especially I think that's a great point with the Maryland specifically, is that because you're so close, send them a letter saying, "Hey, I live in Virginia. I was thinking of moving up there because it's a little bit closer to work. And then, you'd be getting all my tax dollars, but I'm not going to move because, I want the good gun laws."
Or just, I mean, or for example, let's just say like you're from Florida or somewhere below the Mason-Dixon, like Virginia and down, and let's say you're driving to Pennsylvania, you're driving somewhere in the Northeast, just let them know, like, "Hey, listen, I am driving through your state, and because of your stance on gun laws, I will not pump gas in your state. I will not buy my kids a soda in your state to spend our money because of said stance."
Well, yeah, but I mean, and that's a good point. I just wanted to, up it just a little bit because sure, they get a tiny bit of money from gas and candy bars or whatever, but they would get a heck of a lot more if you built a house there and lived there the rest of your life. They're going to collect a lot more money from you. So by telling them that you're not going to do that because of their laws, you might encourage change.
Maryland does have some of the highest property state tax or state property taxes in the country too.
Uh-oh, who's that on the website? Home of the Brave found my secret, and I sound a heck of a lot like Dano.
All right, so I think with that, we got Z in here. Dano had to leave, and we started late, but we ran that one for a while. Obviously, there's lots to talk about. Thanks, Marco, for jumping in. You're welcome. If you're driving, you're welcome to stick around. But
I got to check my GPS, so I'll try to jump back in later.
Okay, keep the link and jump in. We're basically about a third into the show here.
Cool.
All right. But thanks for joining us and giving us that insight. I really appreciate it. And Marco, of course, runs the Gun Channels _ over on Instagram. So when you go to Instagram, you type in Gun Channels, you're going to find one that has like 32 likes or something. And then you'll find one with 322,000 likes or something. And that one's Marco's. He did all that himself. And you bring a lot to the table. So thanks for bringing this additional resource to us.
Anytime, brother. I'll holler at y'all.
Hey, man. Look forward to seeing you in a month.
Yeah, in a month. I'll see y'all there.
Oh, it will be a month? It's that far away?
Yeah, it's like the end of April, so it's like the 20th.
All right, guys, I'm out.
Yeah, see you, man.
So Marco and Smeggy and Bob, maybe. No, not Bob. And then Pink and I guess Deevy and Ballistic and potentially others.
A bunch of people.
We'll be meeting up at NRA show. So stay tuned for that. We were talking about top 5 worst gun laws. I'm going to suggest we jump back to that one. And I know Dano had some insight on that, but he has to make money. So before we do, though, I'm going to take a break, and we're going to feature one of the members over at Gun Channels. We do that usually between the first and second segment of the show, but we kind of modified it today. But we don't want to forget that. We built Gun Channels a while back as a community that focused on firearms. It's membership driven. There's all kinds of things to do there. It's completely free. If you want to participate and keep the place online, that's how it exists, and there's no ads or anything. Due to a couple people, well, I guess a bunch of people contributing either $12 a month or a couple of dollars a month. And today we're going to feature Michael G from the chat the other day. And I can't say that I can think anything right off the top of my head. Let me go look at his icon. That's how I recognize people more than that. So I think he might have just been in the chat and potentially one of the newer people over on Gun Channels, but I don't want to be accused of just only, talking about the people that contribute a lot. Gun Channels is for everybody. And there's potentially, well, there are thousands of people literally that use Gun Channels that we don't all know. There's dozens of people that use it on a regular basis, and we tend to feature some of those people and people that create content and stuff over there, but we don't want to keep everybody in mind. So this week I basically was doing the schedule or making the shows up, and I just picked people that were in the chat that day. So that was Michael was in the chat, and thanks for being a part of Gun Channels.
Yeah, man, I can't say that I'm necessarily familiar with them all that much, so I don't know. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say cool person.
Well, only cool people hang out at Gun Channels. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, with that, let's move into that first topic. Kind of swapping topic here. We're going to go back to top 5 worst gun laws, proposed or passed. And I think we're talking about at any level, from federal to state to local.
Okay, good. Thanks for the clarification. So
I'm going to go ahead and say the first one, I think the worst one ever is was the assault weapons ban. That was the biggest infringement of all time, maybe next to the NFA. But that one was in our lifetime, and I got to live before it, and I got to live after it, and it was pretty shitty. So I think that was the scariest and the most recent and the most audacious. Is that the right word?
Well, and that's the one that all of the states that have crappy laws, they basically just copied that. Like there's a handful of states.
Oh, blame California. Wait, blame California first.
yeah, they started it all, and then they just took
Yep.
their crap and smeared it all over the whole country.
But there are other places that didn't have that or whatever, and when it did pass on the federal level, they passed the state level one. So when the federal level one went away, the state was like, "Nah, we're going to keep doing it." And that's where you got all the, New York and Massachusetts and New Jersey, like all the other state level ones, I think came after the federal. So yeah, I would agree that definitely deserves to be in the top 5 of worst gun laws.
My vote is the NFA for top 5.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's a good one too. But maybe
was-
not even as much just because like, the NFA things, like, I don't know, I don't know what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. The idea that it was the first one to be like, hey, we have these things and we're going to restrict some of them. Like that would like open the door to like, we're allowed to restrict things if we think they're kind of scary or weird or,
Well-
not many people own them or whatever their qualification. It gave them that like precedent to get rid of something specifically they don't like.
If it says in the Bill of Rights, in the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed, this law shit all over that.
Yep, it was the first 176 years after the Second Amendment. They decided that it needed to be infringed, and they put that infringement on there. So I think it's bad. I think it's a good one to have in the top 5, maybe even top 1, because there was no need for it. I'm convinced it was created at a time when police weren't using radios yet. They were chasing people when they were criminals, so somebody could literally flee across the state line. We didn't have national law enforcement at the level that we have now. So the media, quote unquote, the media, just the not any individual with a purpose, I don't think, although maybe there was a purpose to it or an intent or an agenda. But the same way that the old dime novels would exaggerate and create fiction about what it was like for the cowboy days, people were interested in the stupid gangsters, and Prohibition created organized crime, and it became a thing, and it was fairly new, and the media was jumping all over it. People like crime stories, or the media likes to talk about crime stories. So
Well, and yellow journalism was already a thing that was known at that time. That had been happening before World War I even. So the fact that media-driven agendas were a thing already.
yeah, so they wanted to popularize or exploit the whole idea of these like gangsters, because it was made money for them, and that created this perception of fear that the gangsters were everywhere. Of course, gangsters were killing each other, and every once in a while somebody getting away, but for the most part they killed each other. It was all same as now. The prohibition on alcohol created a black market, and of course they were going to fight for their territories and their distribution channels. So they fought amongst themselves pretty bloodily, and the media, fanned that fire. Everyone, and then I guess somehow enough communists got in government. They said, "Hey, great, let's figure out a way to make a larger federal government about this," and they created this thing. And since that time on, there's been this perception. Think of how many generations now, at least a couple of generations existed or have existed with this infringement in place at a federal level. So it created.
Well, before the ATF, I think there were still the revenuers, right? There was the Revenue Service, and that was the ones that did do the taxing on liquor.
Okay.
And I think that was all before the ATF. I hear you.
I'm talking about the perception that guns are violent and horrible things that need to be regulated at a federal level. That was something that didn't exist for 176 something years. Everyone was fine with it. And then after 1934, all of a sudden it was just a thing that the government would be in charge of these things that were so incredibly dangerous that they need to be regulated. And unfortunately, people haven't rebelled against that in enough force that they continue to add to that infringement based on the fact that they already have this first infringement. So I think you're right in saying that that's one of the worst ones, because it led the way for all the other bullshit atrocities that we've had since. Well, over on the gun channel side, our Clay threw in a couple. He said microstamping #1, ammo registry #2, assault weapons bad #3, background checks for private sales #4, and then gun violence restraining order. I don't know what that is, #5. Angry saying the Gun Control Act is 68. That's the big one, obviously. This is Title II, well, I guess Title I of our federal firearms laws. So 60-something years after, no, 30-something years after the initial infringement, they decided, oh, wait a minute, we can, again, because of the assassinations at the time and the riots and stuff, and black people having guns, that got media all and juiced up, and they created this perception that, larger federal government, more infringements is the answer. And unfortunately, enough people said sure. And again, we haven't repealed and repealed it yet. And it basically established what we've all experienced in our lifetimes. That was before me still. So I'm guessing most of us have lived with that.
Well, that established the FFLs, the foreign import restrictions.
It created the 4473. The FFLs have been around.
That's okay.
Like 36 or something. But yeah, it definitely made it a more regulated thing. And I don't know if it created the ATF or tasked them with it, but it led the way for the ATF to start regulating it all. And again, I think the worst part of it all, besides just the infringement of it, is that it creates this perception that firearms are so dangerous that they need to be regulated. And the fact that the federal government regulates it and we all allow it is feeding that perception that firearms are these more dangerous than other pieces of property, and therefore, it's okay to have these infringements. It's not a big deal, and that's a horrible perception. It's a dangerous perception for everyone to just allow to exist.
So that's basically when they outlawed machine guns. Is that that was 34 or whatever?
No, they never outlawed machine guns in 34.
Oh,
Right.
well,
They just defined them and required a registration on machine guns. They've never been illegal. There's a couple of states that then since then have made them illegal, but for the most part, federally, they're always just registered. They're not restricted.
okay, so what's the law now that they can't even make new machine guns, right?
That would be the
Hughes Amendment of '86.
The Gun Owners Protection Act '86 had the Hughes Amendment added to it, which said no more full auto specifically could be created after that date. A lot of people will say that's a bad one. It's not good or anything, but it relies in totally on the 34 and the 68. So get rid of the NFA, you get rid of Hughes.
Right. I was gonna second one of Clay's things of the background check. I think that's they're pushing that for every sale and all that stuff, and I think that's gonna be one of our next fights that we're definitely gonna have to fight. I mean, we lost it in a couple states. We've won it in one state so far, where when they went out to vote, people voted against it. So that was good. But that's the next one, because once they get that, they'll be almost like how 34 opened up the doors a little bit to like, hey, now we can start picking which guns are scary and which ones aren't. The background check thing is going to open the door to, like, they already do it, but it'll even more so. We get to pick who's allowed to have guns and who's not. And then all they need to do is keep expanding that list of people not allowed to have them, and then eventually no one will have them. So I think that's a pivotal one.
Well, that's not the only conclusion of that, too. Once you get universal background checks, there's a couple of things that'll happen. One, every single private transfer between non-criminals will start to be on the books, and they have no idea how many times firearms go back and forth between people, even if it hinders the amount of just casual back and forth transfers that happen, or if people decide to not do the process or whatever because it can't be enforced. There are going to be more. So immediately they're going to be able to start looking at that, and two things. They're going to be able to create another perception that there's too many guns out there, and here's the facts. Here's a government agency that we pay to keep track of this, and we have rules in place that require people to use this system. So now we have this quote unquote more accurate number of how many firearms are transferring, and it's insane. It's too many for it's too many. So they're going to be able to, like Smeggy says, create all kinds of stuff off of that. It's also going to create more bureaucracy, because they're going to say, oh, all of a sudden we need more 4470, or they potentially could create more bureaucracy if they decide to actually try to keep up with the demand. So once you take a state that's not inconsequential, like Washington, where there may be some gun owners there, but how many can there possibly be gun owners there that they allowed universal background checks? I mean, it can't be anywhere near what you're going to have in like Texas or in Arizona or Georgia or Florida or one of the states that gun ownership is more. There's more gun ownership and they're larger states population-wise. So anyway, when you start to try to meet the demand, you're going to need a bigger bureaucracy. So that means they're going to need more funding. So they win because they're looking for bigger government. The other way they could go with that potentially is just to say, oh, well, we require that you do this, but we don't have the resources to fulfill our obligations. So when you make that phone call to do your transfer, it'll just ring and ring and ring and ring and ring. So now they've effectively stopped all transfers by not answering the phone. And that's something that they don't have to think about or do or strategize. They just have to not pick up the phone.
Right. Well, and they already did it. This was brought up before, and I never did find a good answer on it, but they stopped processing appeals because they said, we don't have enough people because we're dealing with like the new ones coming in. So if you get denied or delayed or whatever and you try and appeal it, they just stopped doing that. So you would just forever be denied because your appeal would never go through.
Yep. And if you listen to not Knox, who's the other one? The gun rights war.
Oh, John Lott?
John Lott. If you listen to him, he's got an interesting take on that because the 4473s are done by NICS, which is the FBI, not the ATF. And when they do that, they search by, if you provide social security number, they search by social security number, but otherwise they're going to search by first and last name. And Lott has done research. He's what is his occupation? He's it's a number occupation. What the heck's I forget the name of his occupation, but anyway, he's a numbers guy. He gets
like a statistician or something. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah.
That's the word. He gets paid by the government to keep track of the costs of things. That's his job for his 9 to 5. He gets paid a lot of money to look at the big picture and find out the consequences of things. So he applies that to firearms. And from listening to him, he didn't start out economist. Thank you. That's what he is. He didn't start out as a pro-gun guy. When he does the numbers as just a numbers nerd, somebody who's aware of the numbers and the repercussions of legislation, he can see that the actual process, not theoretically, but the actual process of how they do the 4473s is with names. So if you've got a segment of society that has names in common, like John Smith or whatever the hell nationality you want to look at, Lee, Jefferson. I mean, when you get into certain subsections of the population, people are going to have similar names. So what, like Smeggy's saying, when somebody comes through and for whatever reason they don't have or decide to use their social security number on the form and it gets sent in by their name and their name is all similar to somebody who's a prohibited possessor and they get put up as delayed or potentially even a denied, and they want to appeal that, like Smeggy said, all the government has to do is say, oh, we're too busy with all these universal background check applications that, that things going, 4473s trying to be approved, that we don't have time to appeal these anymore. So basically what you're doing is it's racist. It's racist as shit because anybody who's, got a name similar to another person's name is now going to be kind of in this limbo, this area like the people on the no-fly list, like in this, there's place where there's technically a way to appeal it. It's just that the government doesn't answer the phone to actually appeal it. They put no resources towards that department.
Right, and that's not a hypothetical. I believe it was last year, they straight up said, we're not doing it. Like, we need more agents. We are not doing appeals right now. And everything I've seen on that, it kept saying, we're hoping to hire, 300 new agents, and then we'll start doing it again. And that's the last I've heard of it. So as far as I know, they're still not processing appeals. I was certain, because we talked about this the other day, I was searching for it, and I can't find an update. It was one of those, it was news when it first happened, and there's no follow-up news. Everything I see is articles from last year. So, it's not like, oh, tinfoil hat, the government's not ever going to stop doing appeals. They did stop doing appeals, and from what I can tell, they still don't do them. So
Cycle saying use your social security on the form. Well, I can think of a couple of reasons why I don't like using my social security number. I live in a country where I don't need to have a number, and we did put a lot of effort into destroying a country that was all about putting in fucking numbers. But aside from that, physically, your 4473 is a piece of paper, and your social security number is written on that piece of paper. It's transmitted to the FBI through the NICS, and you may have some concern about that or not, or some position on whether or not that's a negative or a positive. But you can't deny that if you write it on your 4473 in pen, or if the store requires it and you've got it written in pen, that's a piece of paper physically in that building. And if gun stores get robbed, data gets mined or whatever, data gets stolen. So having your social security number out there is an important number. It's not something that we use for things, and it's used for banking and loans and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not at all a fan of requiring people, in order for the process to go smoothly, quote unquote, to just go ahead and give one of your most personal pieces of data and write it on a piece of paper that they have an obligation to hold it, but they don't have an obligation or a responsibility or a consequence if they hire somebody who's going to snoop through 4473s for socials. If they have cleaning people that come in and search for socials, I'm not going to say that FBI and ATF can't be bad and go through and vacuum socials and do nefarious things with them. How do we fucking know? They're just federal office agents. They're not perfect, and they're definitely not flawless, and they're definitely not incorruptible. So I don't like the idea of having a 4473 written on pen in a place that isn't a bank. I mean, I've worked at banks and things where they have to pass background checks, like there's locked doors. Cleaning crews can't go into places because there's social security numbers laying around and bank numbers laying around. Gun shops don't have that. They don't have that requirement, and they don't bother with it. So I think it's a casual thing to put. I don't think it should be taken casually. That's what I said, to be put in a 44.
Right, and also so I saw the interview with Lott when he was talking, and you also put down your address and your city of birth and all that stuff and your birthday. And from what I've heard, and I don't know where he got this from, but what he was saying is the majority of the time they don't even look at that. They look at the name and say yes or no, and they look at the phonetic of your name. So not like names that are spelled similar to your name. If that person's prohibited, they'll kick you out. So it's like, if they can't even bother to look at your date of birth or your address to figure out which John Smith you are, putting the social won't matter, because they're not going to look at that either.
Well, let's be careful.
This is his assertion. I'm just saying that
we don't want to fall into the trap, because it's definitely a deliberate trap to then require that they be more efficient at keeping track of us. That's not the answer. It's not the only solution to this. The solution to the poor 4473s is for them, the people that require 4473, to justify why the 4473s exist. Requiring that the government either grow or get better at keeping track of us, I don't believe is a solution to making the 4473s better.
Well, in theory, then, we need to make the 4473s no longer need to exist, is what we need.
I definitely think that that's a great position to take, because you're pushing for universal background checks. The only freaking way that they're able to have the audacity to suggest that they need universal background checks in addition to the burden of 4473s is by us suggesting that the 4473s are necessary and not working. So number one, we need to say, no, you justify why we have a 4473 in the first place. You justify how it does anything. You justify how the money spent on it today and ever since it was incepted, how that money has prevented anything. You tell us how that's prevented any crimes, and then we'll talk about maybe keeping the 4473. But the only way they're able to take the additional push, the additional charge of universal background checks, is when they feel they have a safe position on the 4473s. I say, let's make that a rocky position, so that they're justifying its existence. They won't have time to push for universals.
Hey, G, what's this UPIN that they're talking about out there in the gun channels? I'm not familiar, or if I am, I just don't recognize it.
If you're an immigrant like Bob, then you don't have a social security number because you're not a real person. So they have those, and then I think if you're, I don't know, just someone
universal personal identification number. Is that what something to that effect?
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't think it's just for criminals or anything, or just for immigrants, because it's maybe for people that it's maybe like an option of a number that you can have that isn't a social security number. But I mean, if you got a number that's registered with the government, who cares if it's your social security number or some other freaking number they call it? It's still a number that's registered with the federal
Well,
government.
We
is
want a
that the
social
one
insurance
that's
number.
set up for people that like they would get denied a lot, and so much so that they were able to like basically go to the ATF, be like, listen, I'm not this person you keep denying me for, and then they give
That's what it
give
is.
you that special number.
That's what it is.
There you go.
If your name is John Smith, thanks for saying that, clarifying it, is XA17, whatever it is.
ZAS, I think. But yeah.
It separates common names for NICs, and again, because they're too lazy and because the system's set up for them to not be able to do it well, this was a step to retain privacy, I guess. So you register with the government this UPIN, and then they go, oh, you're that John Smith who's okay. Now, I don't know that many people that use it now that those guys have said it. Now I remember it, but I don't think that guarantees a proceed. It may still give you a denied every time, but I guess it's better than a delayed. I mean, I guess it's better than, I mean, it might get you a delayed every time, but it's better than a denial. But
Right.
I haven't seen enough of them. I don't know how many 4473s I've had to, be the guy signing on from when people sign it in, but maybe hundreds. And I've only ever seen like one, and it was
Well, is this UPIN or whatever, is this newer? Is this a newer thing, or how long do you think this has been around? Has it been around 20 years? Has it been around 30 years?
4473s are only 40 years old, so I'm guessing
Right.
less than that, but I don't know.
Wait, well, yeah, okay, like almost probably 50 years, really, because if it's 68 and we're in 17, but yeah, I gotcha. So you think that the UPIN is maybe 20, 25, maybe into the
I don't know.
into the 90s?
I've never personally needed it, so I've never really known.
Okay.
And it's one that I don't ever use. So there's about, I don't know, 1,000 entries on that 4473 you never use. And it's just one of those that I just never paid attention to because it never comes up. So it may have been there forever, in other words, or it may have been there recently.
He's saying it's been around a long time, but we're not quite sure what represents a long time at this moment. But back to the actual top 5 worst gun laws. So we've named the NFA, the assault weapons ban. We've named the Hughes Amendment, and then this universal background checks, right? So what other total pile of dog shit is going to be in our top 5, gentlemen?
Well, I'm just going to say, for sake of time, we call that our top 5 for this session. And if it's something you want us to hit again, let us know on our Saturday shows. The second Saturday of the month, we get together with our Patreon supporters and we schedule the show out for the next 30 days. Anybody who's Patreon supporter, of course, your topics get fast-tracked right into the schedule. Or if you're just watching us, joining us for that show on Saturday, then feel free to bring this up again, because it is interesting. I'm super tired, so I'm not going to drag it down there and add it again unless one of you guys want to. But I think we can do top 5s again. It gets depressing talking about worst gun laws. Maybe we can talk about top 5s.
I'm with you on that, G.
Just for sake of our OCD people who are worried that we don't have 5, I did mention the SAFE Act when we first started talking, but then we switched over to Maryland. So technically, you could pencil that one in as the 5th one for all you OCD people.
Thanks, Max. And I did have a question. Of course, I got here late. That's just the way it is. That's the reality of the situation. But did you guys already talk about what happened in the 11th Circuit Court with the what was it? 11th Circuit Court said something crappy. That the guy that got shot by the cop who didn't identify himself, yada, 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 came in, that it's okay for the cop to shoot the person in the house without identifying themselves if they have a gun. Now, that is a gross, what do you call that, characterization of the actual thing that happened. I think it was in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals or something like that. It was the officer that had banged on the door later at night. Person didn't identify themselves, didn't have their lights on their cruiser. I don't even believe that they were necessarily in uniform regular, like they may have been, plain clothes or something like that. And And again, I'm
Did
not
the cop,
sure.
like, break into the house, or like, did he kick in the door?
And again, I'm not 100% on the.
'Cause I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, it just came up in the feed this weekend or whatever, and everybody was making a big deal about it. You know, of course, they were taking it to the extreme of saying, "Oh, now a cop can kick your door in and shoot you if you have a gun." So there were the people that were trying to paint it in that picture, which I don't believe that it necessarily does that, but it opens the door for that as a defense for said police officer.
So basically, a cop came in, didn't identify himself. The homeowner, not knowing it was a cop, thought he was being invaded, pulled a gun. The cop shot that person, and the court is saying that the cop is okay in doing so.
I believe that is relatively accurate.
Huh.
I do believe that is the gist of the thing.
Yeah, that seems kind of scary, but
that seems very scary. But you also know that this is something that quite possibly could end up getting pushed up to the Supreme Court at some point, because it's one of those things where there's just enough shenanigans theoretically going on in this particular thing where it could get pushed all the way up to the top.
But that's also something, just to, no matter which way it goes, has to be super, super rare. Like, okay, maybe it's happened once, but that's probably the one and only time it's ever happened type of thing. I mean, I'm not over a cop getting in the wrong house and not identifying himself, and me trying to defend myself and then losing that battle. And what, like, come on.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that at all.
That the cop wasn't there
I can
for
understand that
reason, right? But he failed to identify. Like, he might have been there for whatever reason, like a legitimate reason, and had a legitimate reason for coming in the house. But because he didn't identify himself, when who knows what this guy's background was, right? We don't know.
Well, this does no good for the dead guy that's the homeowner, right?
No. I'm also saying that it's like we don't know the story ground to the guy who was shot by the police, that we don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, from what I'm seeing for the facts, it's. You know,
I will. I'll look for it and see if I can come up with some actual, facts from the case or something. I'll try and have them for the show tomorrow or something.
We don't even know.
I'll try and follow up on that.
Like I say, if it was the wrong house or not, or whether he was at the right house but just didn't identify himself. That's what I'd like to know. So anyway, that's all I had to say about that.
Oh, did you guys do the death match yet?
No.
The good idea, bad idea. Did you do that death match? Are we going to pair up? Everybody grabs the knife, grabs the sash. We start hearing Michael Jackson.
I say we get into it, but do we want to take a break between the second and third segment to promote something?
I think that's a good idea.
Let's not promote the echoes. So whoever the hell is not muting, start muting. I'm going to suggest let's talk about the Indiegogo campaign for the gun channels patches. So we've got some gun channels patches coming. We just talked to Marco. Marco and Pink are doing another run of patches. People may not know that those guys bought a bunch of patches, a lot of patches actually, to on their own money, and then handed them out at NRA at SHOT Show, and they're planning on doing the same thing at NRA Show. So since they were buying some, I bought a few extra, not very many, and we have them available on Indiegogo. I'll put a link here as we're talking in the live chats, but if you want to check it out, head over to the, if you're listening to this in the future and you want to check it out, either head over to Gun Channels. We have a link on the main page. Just go to Indiegogo and type in Gun Channels. I'm sure you'll find it. Or if you look at the show notes, there'll be a link to the campaign over there. There's literally the number 5 orange patches available, and there's only 3 of those left. I guess all 5 of the pink patches are left, and then there's some glow in the darks. We have just a few sets of 3, and there's literally 15 orange patches available, 15 pink patches available altogether. And then I got more glow in the darks, but it's the first time we're doing a glow in the dark with the Gun Channels logo, so that should be pretty neat. And there'll be very limited number of the orange and pinks. So if you're interested in trying to collect an assortment of all of them, or you just want to support the thing, there are still some available. We won't make any money on this, but we will be able to pay for the patches. So I appreciate everybody who participates in that. And like I say, the links will be available wherever you're at.
Yeah, and I definitely got my set. I got to collect them all. Only the cool kids collect them all.
Got to catch them all, eh?
Yep.
Good for you, man.
So, and I'll be at NRA show also. So.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to get there, but I'm thinking, oh, it's gonna be god-ass hot about then, so I don't know if I want to drive all those miles just to sweat.
Yeah, whatever. So, anyways, let's do this good idea, bad idea thing, because I'm about to split out of here to go to Hit or Miss Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock.
Oh yeah, we're definitely running late again. So we do a good idea, bad idea every week, and I don't know why we keep putting them in here like this. We should just say optics, or we should say iron sights. But doing it this way, I don't understand it. So how are we going to do this one? It says scopes over iron sights. So is that the good idea, that optics are better than iron sights? And if that's a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, that's too ambiguous, right? Because they're better for some things. I mean, if you're shooting really long range, yeah, you don't necessarily absolutely have to have optics. But anything else out to a couple hundred yards, no, I think iron sights are fine if you can use them. If your eyes are fine, that's great. I know some of us with eye problems, it's easier to use a scope or optic of some kind. But yeah, iron sights, just learn to shoot with them, and yeah, they're good out to a couple hundred yards easy. So I vote yes for iron sights.
And I am pro optics, although I agree you should know how to use iron sights and whatnot. My hunting rifle doesn't even have iron sights on it. It was made to have a scope on it, and that's what it is. And I don't even shoot that long a distance. I just want to make sure I can hit the thing exactly where I want to hit it.
Wait a minute. What's happening?
Oh, snap.
This is right in the middle of the topic. This is actually a surprise. We're having
It was like mid-sentence. This is awesome. This is how it should always be.
Quiz right now. You may not be ready for it. Nobody yelled up.
You just didn't want me to answer, dude, you jerk.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the point.
No.
That way, iron.
The point is to have the fucking tactical pop quiz as a surprise, like it's supposed to be.
I'm ready. Let's go.
So this one is sent in by Angry, so he's not playing today. What's the name of the ship that inspired the Colt Patterson revolver? What's the name of the ship that inspired the Colt Patterson revolver? We're watching the answers on gun channels and over at YouTube. Anybody that wants to participate, you're going to win a patch. If you're listening to this as a podcast in the future, then you should start listening to the show live. We come on at 7 p.m. Eastern at 4 Pacific, and you'd have the opportunity to play in the tactical pop quiz. So I'll say the answer, or not the answer, I'll say the question again. What is the name of the ship that inspired the Colt Patterson revolver, which was the first Colt? And Angry's not playing since he offered the question to us in an email, but it looks like nobody else is playing either. Are you getting any answers out there?
I am not. I just saw I'm double checking when I'm looking at the thing there. It's the word that's literally under the pop quiz question, yes?
I guess so. I'm assuming so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Does it.
Okay.
And we're not seeing any answers.
I know this one, but I disagree with the answer, but I do know it.
Colt said Patterson, and I don't think that's correct, so no.
USS Big Ass Boat. That's a good idea, but no, that's not the correct answer.
All right, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to wait forever if nobody's paying attention. So I guess we'll just keep going. Z, you didn't have a chance to answer on the good idea.
Well,
bad
I
idea.
wanted to look at it like this. Bing, 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 Cave Dave
All right.
over on YouTube.
Right on. So we the answer is, was that Corvo?
That's what I would say.
I guess. And according to Angry and Dano, that's the answer. So what we'll do is send you a link to our website, dailygunshow.com. There's a subpage there, Daily Pop Quiz. We've got a patch panel there. I guess I could show it on the screen here since I'm going over there anyway. And it's a bunch of patches that either we make here in Tucson, like the Targets and the Bass one here. Let's see, we make the Wolverine ones, the Chairs Against the Wall, John Has a Long Mustache, our own muzzle and mic logos, we make those. Some of the gun channels ones, the FU Media, we make here. our new media patches. Some of those are made here, some aren't. We have the AK-47 art from the cards. We do that one here. Then a bunch of them are made with our designs that we have made for us, and then some Bob and I picked up at gun shows along the way, and then others like the BMC Tactical and the dead air silencers. They just wanted to be part of it, so they sent us some patches to add to the panel. So as the winner, who was it again?
Cave Dave.
Thanks,
Cave.
On the gun channels, you get to head over there. Let us know what patch off the panel you'd like. There's a place underneath here where you can let us know where to send it. There's no obligation. Some of you guys don't want the patches, send them to a friend. We're still sending out a patch. If you want, you win. So if you don't want the patch, that's great. But if you want to send it to somebody else, do so. Anyway, do we want to
Cave Dave's on the YouTube side though, not gun channel side.
Oh, thank you. I didn't even notice that. So there you go. And
Congratulations, Cave Dave. That was a tough question.
Right, and some people got the name of the place right, but not the name of the ship right. And I think that was why it was a good question, because it if you just glazed over it, you gave the wrong answer. If you thought about it for a second.
Next time.
So technically, that makes you the what?
Go ahead.
Technically, Cave Dave, you know what? That makes you the tactical pop quiz hot shot for today. So good job. Way to make it happen.
All right. Now what I wanted to say is next time Angry American and I are in a chat, I'm gonna have a talk with him. I think he's wrong, but I will. We will discuss it.
Why would you think that he's wrong, Bob?
Because the actual idea for the Colt Patterson, I don't think was. It's generally been said that it was because he saw this wheel on a ship turning and thought, "Oh, I'll make a revolver that way." But there were revolving cylinder guns, which were prominent in India at the time. They were
So
made
what?
by British gun makers.
Bob, that's not the question, Bob. The question was, what was the name of the ship?
Those revolving required you to index them with your other hand. The boats have a check thing that allows the boat to sail in a direction like autopilot. That is the inspiration for indexing revolving
Cylinders.
The hand ones indexed. What they didn't do was when you pulled the hammer back, it didn't rotate the cylinder.
we all know that Bob wants some European to be the inspiration for the revolving.
And we ain't giving it to him. I ain't doing it, man. I refuse to.
Hey, it's just a new theory from people who've been studying the history. I'm just, going to bring it up with them.
Revisionists. Yes.
And
Revisionists.
lack of
You wanna
oxygen
deny-
causes brain damage, by the way, Bob.
Fact, most of the good gun ideas came from
your
England.
European revisionist history, which chooses to deny origins.
Yeah, because I mean, where did that story about the ship wheel come from? I'm guessing it's from the dude saying like, "Hey, this is why I thought of this." Like, where'd that story come from to begin with? He obviously
It was people just assuming that's where he got the idea.
Anyway, Z,
Oh, okay.
you were going to say what you
Whatever.
thought of the scopes over irons.
Oh, when I was reading it, I actually looked at it as scopes over the iron sights.
Okay, so you mean physically in relation to each other, is it a good idea to have your optic up on top of your iron so that you can still use your irons through the scope base?
That's what I was thinking.
Well, that
Now,
makes a question then, I guess. I'm going to say yes. I'm pro.
I would say that's a good idea because then you can still use either.
It's
Now,
not the best idea because it's going to take your optics up in the air. Now,
oh,
if
you're going to have that riser, or you're going to have a different cheek weld for both. You're definitely right, and let alone if the optic breaks or malfunctions or something, you still will want to take it off the firearm at some point in time and everything. But I'm just saying, if the inference is to be the scope over so that you can still witness the iron sights on a rifle, I'm saying that's a good idea, as opposed to the majority of the other rifles. They just have the scope and like no iron sights. So then that's not even necessarily an option. So
which
I'm going to
still
say
think
that
that's okay to just have a scope.
right, because let's be
You're
honest,
using it for a
your
specific
hunting
thing.
rifle, you're probably not taking that air quotes to go to war or anything like that.
Right. I mean,
You're
worst case
literally
scenario, my
using it
scope
just to
breaks,
hunt.
and I don't get to use that rifle for that hunting trip. And for me,
Right.
hunting's not life or death.
Right. So I can totally understand that. But if it's one or the other, you know what I'm saying? Like this or that, instead, kind of like you guys were talking, I would take iron sights over scopes probably 99 out of 100 times. I agree with Smeggy in that there are times where that scope is going to be beneficial for sure, but the majority of usage I believe would be with iron sights. So that's my answer, I guess. If it's one or the other, I say iron sights. If it's literally above, the scope above, so you can still use the iron sights, I say that's a good idea.
And I'm going to go talking of what you're on that one, the scope physically over the iron sights. I'm going to call that a bad idea just because it's going to be really obnoxious to try and use that scope because it's going to be so high up there.
I'm trying to think. It's the Russian ones, isn't it, G? That whether it was the AK or some of the other rifles, and again, I'm not 100% sure that it was the Russians, but I just swear that it seemed like they were the ones that had the scope, but you could still look down for closer up target acquisition.
Well, they are the ones, but I thought it's because their scopes are garbage. They were made by communists, so they knew they were going to break, and they had to have a backup.
Now, I won't disagree that that's a possibility.
I'll have you know,
but that's who I was thinking of when I was thinking of that process.
In World War II, the scope they put on the Mosin was considered one of the best sniper scopes for its durability. It's not for its clarity. It was nothing like a German scope, but it was a 4-power, very practical for that kind of sniping they were doing, and it was always considered one of the better sniper scopes.
Well, there's a little piece of European history for us, but
Thanks, Bob.
Were you coming down on the scope on top of your iron sights? Yes or no? Bob?
Oh, I've already said the scope on top. Oh, I guess I didn't say that. I was thinking it. I've used it. I don't like it. I tried it because I thought it'd be kind of handy in the bush. You could have magnification for when they're clear of the bush. You could have your irons, but because you're looking through that scope base and you've got that scope sitting on top of it, it really does block your vision sight that you're going to be using your iron sights at. So I didn't really like it. I'd rather just be able to have a quick dismount on my scope if I'm going to have a scope, or just go with irons and go, I'm not going to shoot over 200 yards.
I think they're on the SKSs. I remember people using that kind of system. And I don't know if it was because it was better or worse, or as much as like it was another piece of marketing. Like, oh, we're not ruining your regular sites. You can still use them.
Yep. And G, I know you're already not really much of an optics guy, and like you stated in the past, like optics, schmoptics for the most part. I'm interested to hear what you got to say.
Oh, I said I was okay with it because at least he has people using their irons or making them available, but it's kind of a moot point because there's no bolt actions have irons on them, so you're not going to put on a modern bolt action for the most part. If you're putting on like a Nagant, like Bob's saying, or an SKS or something like that, maybe. I'm not really sure about the German crap. I never buy any of that World War II stuff anymore, so I don't remember what that stuff's like. And a lot of times you don't put optics on that unless you're sporterizing it. But and then ARs is the big one. So on ARs and AKs and stuff, it's not such a big deal because you either don't have your irons, or some people even put them on, or you're so used to looking that high up in the air anyway, because the ARs, bore and optic are so far apart from each other anyway, that it's hardly an issue. So I guess I'm okay with it, but I don't see it really being that big of a crucial one, really. I think, well, like I say, you guys are talking about for hunting, I just can't think of that many hunting guns that even have irons anymore. Maybe a couple.
Well, and I think that's Bill out there. And he says, I always use see-through rings on my hunting guns where possible. So, like, I think what he's stating is, like, much like Smeggy, like, if it doesn't have iron sights, he's not going to worry about it. It's probably going to be a low mount, right, for the scope. But I think what he's also saying, though, is if he happens to have a particular rifle that he would be using for hunting that does have iron sights, he is going to try and maintain that usability of it by just purchasing see-through rings, which I think that that's not a bad extra option to have.
No, it is. And if you're going to put a scope on a hunting rifle, that's true. That's a good.
Yeah, because he's not saying he's not saying he puts extra iron sights on it or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, it makes perfect sense. And I mean, as long as you get the right kind of mounts that don't obscure your sights and.
So Smeggy was talking about hunting not being a big deal. I think that's interesting because we all hunt in different places. So back east, where you got cornfields and soybean fields, and I don't know how many deers, like in Indiana, they can get like 3 or 4 deers in a year or more. Compared to out here, where you might be hunting for something like an elk, you barely get a permit once in a while, once every few years. And then you're walking way the hell out in the middle of nowhere to find the one critter. Your optics go down out there. It's not life or death, but you're going to be pissed if you didn't have some kind of redundancy out there. So I guess I would say that there's probably some difference in the way people hunt and the conditions of hunting that might make that more of a priority or not.
Oh, for sure. I mean, my dad hunted with irons until his eyes started to go, and then he put a 2.5 power scope on his rifle. But most of the hunting the bush, so it was very short range. I mean, if you got a 100-yard shot, that was a long shot for a normal hunt. But you still.
Have you been reading the side chat? I don't know if he's been reading that or not because he's not been saying anything.
Yeah, no, I have my computer's being all weird right now. I tried to type a response, but it's not going through.
Okay, well, I just threw that out there because otherwise Smeggy's going to jump out in a bit here to watch or to be a host of what the hell is the name of your show? Hit or Miss?
Yes, Hit or Miss.
Both Night Strike and well, I guess we'll figure out if you guys are jumping out or they're jumping in, but they're welcome to jump in. If you guys aren't able to jump in today because of the late notice, then maybe let's plan on doing that next Tuesday so that we do the same thing we do with the Andalusia Armory. If you guys are okay with starting a little bit late, because then, or maybe if we can be, we can end early intentionally so that we can bring you guys on before your show starts or something. Anyhow, we want to acknowledge the other shows that are on YouTube, on gun channels on Tuesday nights.
Sure.
For the sake of time, then, we're going to call this one. Is it a draw? Smeggy was the only one going with no.
I think Smeggy was.
I think I'm the only one that's.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
Bad idea.
Dano would ask questions about how this pertains to firearms training or to CCW.
Which particular scenario are you talking about? That'd be another way he would approach it.
Well, actually, honestly, though, that is kind of a good point because if you are talking your go-to-war rifle or your whatever, you're gonna want to have at least both options on it, or have just have irons or whatever. But yeah, gee, when you mentioned the whole going on the elk hunt, you only do that once every few years. That is a good point. And it started to sway me a bit from my original answer, but.
Well, no, I agree with you 100% when you're back in the East where, you're getting multiple deers and you can just either go around another field and get another deer or stand up in some other tree stand and get another deer. Half the time you guys are watching deer go by until you get the deer you want. That's a different type of hunting than buffalo.
Right.
You get it once in a lifetime.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that, and me personally, I'm hunting on my own property with my family and friends or whatever. And if my scope goes down, I can just go to my uncle and be like, hey, can I use your rifle for the rest of the weekend? I have people that are literally, the house is 10-minute walk away. I just walk back to the house and grab a different rifle.
Can I use one of your rifles? It's not just your rifle. You're going, can I borrow one of your other hunting rifles?
Not with universal backgrounds.
They got multiple. Yeah.
Well,
Michigan hasn't allowed that to happen yet.
No, we're still pretty good.
Yeah,
We're in the middle.
We don't even have that in Canada anymore.
All right. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap that one up. And potentially, I like Smeggy's idea of go-to-war type of rifle and his concept that you need an optic on that. That seems like something we could debate. So maybe we'll talk about that one in a future. I forget what the name we're calling this thing. Good idea, bad idea?
Right.
So that'll take us into the gun of the day. And today we're doing, I think it's the Zip. If not, we're just talking about USFA. USFA, company that makes both of the guns that are seen on the screen right there. They originally started out making those Colt replicas and really nice, really, really well made pistol revolvers. And I forget what year now, a couple of years back, they ended that and they started this new line of zips, totally new design, completely different than any other gun you've probably ever seen, and completely unique. Had absolutely the worst, what do you call, like introduction and feedback and response and reception, I guess. So yeah, we love to eat our own, and we'll take some innovation, but not every piece of innovation that comes along. So for that reason, I think it's an interesting little piece of the firearms story, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I think they're pretty cool. I mean, I guess they had some feeding issues or whatever, which is why everyone gets all cranky about it. But for a fun little,
flawlessly, people can't deal with the fact that its charging handle is up front next to the barrel.
The barrel.
People cannot handle that concept, even though it's just the same charging handle that you'd have on HK. You're up front. It's just that you're not right next to the muzzle, I guess, and other things. Anyway, people have this perception, I guess, that you're going to shoot your fingers off because you're putting your hand somewhere near the muzzle there.
But you're putting your hand near the muzzle in order to charge it. So it's like, I don't see where the problem is there.
Well, it's a finicky little manual of arms, so it's not ideal, but it's also the first innovation of it. It's the first gen.
Exactly.
Also, the gap between the gap between your the magazine, which is it's not huge, but it's a double stack big. What do they call those things? Either the
BX-25,
the normal 10 round rotary drum things. It's either the little rotary drum, which is double stack, or even wider. Really, it's wider than a 9mm double stack for sure. It's wider than a 45 double stack. If you got a big 10-22 mag in there, then it's pretty sizable and long. But then they added this whole contraption at the end, so it makes the length of pull, the length from where your web of your hand to where your trigger finger needs to be, pretty darn long. And that's another reason people freak out about it. So it's not just the concept that it didn't feed well, I guess what I'm getting at. It's not ideal. It's got weird sights and it's weird looking. People freak out when they see it. It doesn't have a standard pistol grip, and it never had a chance to evolve, unfortunately.
Right. Well, I'm just gonna say, yeah, it's weird looking, but that's fine with me. I like weird things.
You know what? I'd love to see one with a 110 round drum magazine stuck in it.
They don't fit in there. The tower is too wide on them. I've tried.
Is it? Oh, that's too bad.
Anyways, I'm gonna go jump over to hit or miss. So you guys have a good rest of the show.
All right. See you,
All right, take care. I know we're talking about the zip, but I want to talk about the finish on that revolver, dude.
Oh,
look at that. It's whatever, man. That's an excellent firearm.
I mean, that's a brand new specimen there, but yeah, it's a super nice finish. Those things are just nice. And whenever I found out that USFA, United States Firearms, I don't know what A stands for. Anyway, that company, they once I found out that they had stopped production on that thing, and one of them came into Tucson Guns, I was like, hell yeah! I dragged mine over there and got them next to each other. But man, I was impressed. I'm not a big fan of old guns. I definitely wasn't then, and I mean, even not being all that much of a fan of them, there's no way to deny. You hold that thing and you're like, wow! It's like holding the Bauer. Has anybody ever had a chance to pick up a Bauer? When you look at them, you look, oh, that's kind of a same gun I've seen a million times. And worse, you think it's something like a Jennings or a Breitco or something, but it is not. It is,
which it is not,
highly engineered. So this is the same way. It's just a tight gun. It had to be a lot like picking up an old Colt back in the day.
Oh, can you imagine what it was like to get a brand new, made in the 1890s factory Colt?
Yeah, barely.
Hand workmanship, bluing.
Years later, and there's still, some of them are still tight hundreds of years later. So I can't even imagine how nice it would have been to see brand new ones on the shop.
Yeah.
And I know it's not the same thing, but one of the first 22s I ever shot as a kid was going to be, I think it was a Ruger Blackhawk, and it was the one where it had the exchangeable cylinders from 22 to 22 Magnum. So I mean, it was the same way that is, where it's you use the spring rod to unload it and everything like that. And it you know, and having grown up watching cowboy movies and cowboy TV shows and everything like that, you put it in your hand, you rotate that cylinder, and it puts you right there. In my opinion, I know that I will own something similar to that, and the finish on that one that you showed in your video, G, makes me actually want one of those. Because that finish, I like that finish, or at least the way the lighting was for it, or something. The way you did the video, that I'm not sure, but I really like the finish on that.
Yeah, that finish is doing its own justice there. It is a nice, well-made gun. I think they're about as rare as hen's teeth. I've only ever seen one, ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And so they stopped making them like a decade or more, you think, ago?
I really don't know. I didn't even know it was a company until they said I found out that the Zip company had been that company, and that was first.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not. I don't know how big a production they went into. Although I'm not a cowboy action shooter, a lot of those cowboy guys will buy modern, versions of the old guns because they don't want to wear out their old stuff, or they're doing something weird to it or something. So I suspect maybe because they're so well made, maybe they were popular with that realm, and maybe they got bought up by people who appreciated them.
Could be. And you see what Bob's trying to do, G-Webs? He's trying to go Italian on us. He's going back to Europe again when we're talking about an American-made product.
Look at the case hardened frame. I mean, the bluing on it, and this is a tight shooting gun. I don't care what else you say about the Italians. They make nice replica revolvers.
Oh, I don't talk bad about the Italians. I don't want to die.
Bringing it back to pro-Europe.
Always, dude, always. He's a European sympathizer.
I got a Blackhawk, a Ruger Blackhawk too, but I mean, I like this one better. I can't lie, man. This is more of a real traditional 6-gun than the Ruger Blackhawk. Just because all it is. I mean,
right. Well, talking about traditional guns, we'll transition to the movie of the day out of the gun of the day there. So if you ever have a suggestion for gun of the day, feel free to email us. We have an easy to remember email. It's dailygunshow@gmail.com. We're always looking for contributions from the audience as far as gun of the day questions, along with an answer for the pop quiz to help Dano out with those, because he has to do those daily. We've got gun shops, so we like to feature a gun shop every day. That's one of the key elements of the show, and we're really interested in hearing about the gun shops that are out there, the unique and interesting ones. So take advantage of that email address, dailygunshow@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to pass along any interesting stuff in these segments. With that, though, we're going to talk about the movie of the day. We try to feature a gun-related movie every day, something you might not have seen in a while, or if you're a youngin', something you ain't seen yet. And today it's Winchester 73. Jimmy Stewart, Western.
I think I've maybe only ever seen this one time, like on Saturday afternoon or whatever.
I hear you. It's just or you would think of it as just a regular Western. It's an okay Western. It's not good. It's not the best. Maybe it's not worst for sure, but it's a lot of people put it in their top Westerns. But once you hear about the gun and the whole concept.
Well, I was going to say, in reality, isn't the movie, it's not really about Jimmy Stewart or the characters. It's literally about the gun, isn't it?
Well, it's about Jimmy Stewart and some stupid, drama or whatever. But it is the topic of the movie. It revolves around a shootout, a competition. So Winchester 73 is one of the iconic. It's the gun that won the West, and it was not the first Winchester, but it was the Winchester that was worked well and was sent out and or made in vast numbers. And because they were made in such vast numbers, there was always going to be that time when all the stars aligned, all the tolerances were perfect, and a gun just came out of the factory ideal to spec, like exactly what they want. This is the days of interchangeable parts and industrialization, but the beginnings of all that. So there was a lot of hand work, and there was a lot of artisan craftsmanship in them. So every once in a while they would come out with just a really nice gun, and they would call those one of 1,000, one of 100s. And then every once in a while there was one that was even better than that, and they would call those 1 of 1,000. And that's what this movie is about. One of 1,000 guns. They didn't just hand those out to people. They realized what those guns were. They marked them, and part of a marketing thing, I suppose, but also because of their quality, they would go out and do things like this. And it was like Old West town. I forget the circumstances entirely, but basically it was like the end of the, whatever you call, like the playoffs or whatever. Like the people that had been competing or something showed up in this town to finally compete for this 1 in 1,000 gun, about a very valuable gun. And then it's a drama about the competition and stuff. But it's a neat gun because instead of being, or it's a neat movie because instead of being right revolvers, right, it was lever guns. So once you've heard that part of it, it might be worth taking another look at that movie. Jimmy Stewart's in it. Obviously, he's a great actor. So the movie itself is just going to be interesting to watch. So people around you aren't going to have to watch it just because it's a gun movie. They'll probably enjoy it just as a Western. But there's just a little bit more to it. As a gun guy, a gun nerd, it's kind of got an interesting theme. And having Westerns is one thing, but a Western that brings up some facet of firearms like that, I think is extra special. So I think it's a neat gun of the movie of the day.
Excellent. And you know what? Just doing that little review that you did just there, that has I'm probably going to watch it again here in the next week or so. That's made me want to rewatch it because there's so much that I don't remember. It'll obviously be like almost watching it for the first time again, kind of, or sort of, you know.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon. I think I saw it not too long ago again. And what's nice about it as well is it's not Good, Bad, the Ugly. It's not a Clint Eastwood movie, so it's not dark or anything like that. It's borderline cheesy television, like, you know, bubbly, but it's not. So it's not the typical cowboy movie plot. So it's interesting just because it's a different type of cowboy movie.
And plus, didn't Jimmy end up being a 2-star by the time he had retired? So it's got a general in it.
It's true.
Anyway,
I don't know when they made it though. You know,
no, yeah, he was not at that time. When he retired from the military, finally, after being in the reserves and everything after, then it was like post-service or whatever was when he got jacked up to, I think it was a 2-star.
yeah.
But yeah,
And, well,
I would definitely watch this movie. So I am going to give it 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up for me as well. And in respect for Jimmy Stewart, I'm not going to say anything other than a great movie. The man's a hero to me, and yeah, so great movie.
Oh, he's pretty much a legend. Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, with that then we'll move on to the next thing, which would be, what do we got left? What is this brainy thing?
Health.
That? So,
Tip.
yeah, we did everything else, right? So healthy tip today is take the stairs. I think somebody sent that one in. It's a good one though. You know, you have an opportunity when you go up an elevator, I guess. But another thing is when you're out like in a parking lot or just walking around or whatever, every once in a while there's like the ramp that's maybe even easier, and then there's the stairs over there. Sometimes taking the path less followed, you know, gives you a little bit more exercise. So,
yep. Well, I just,
it's a good one, I suppose.
on that tip, I just wanted to add, I heard a rather interesting thing. A guy who decided to lose some weight just started walking up the stairs of his building every day, and he counted the steps because, you know, he was one of those people who did that. Realized he'd walked across America or climbed across America, and then he decided he should go to the moon. So he figured out how many steps it would take to get to the moon, and over the course of I don't remember how long, but he actually walked to the moon, and in the process, he actually lost 200 pounds. And
That's very cool.
Yeah. And
well, how's a spacesuit supposed to fit on the way back, dude?
Right? He'd do it for his lunch, right? He'd just go up and down the stairs of his building, and everybody thought it was kind of odd, but you know, hey, he's getting some exercise. And he did this to lose weight, and eventually walked to the moon. When he'd walked or climbed far enough to get to the moon, his coworkers met him at the top of the stairs with cake and stuff like that, I guess, or cheese, I don't know. But yeah, they celebrated the fact, and you know, really cool. That just, and it's so easy, right? Don't take the elevator. You're only going up 2 flights. Take stairs. I think this is a really good tip, and I promote it heavily.
Yeah, I think that one, I'm going to make that a separate one, Walk to the Moon, because that is super cool. I like that. And
Yep.
I was going to, at first when you started saying that, I thought you were going to say the guy figured out like how many steps it would take to lose 200 pounds or whatever. Like, oh, it takes this many steps to lose 50 pounds or something. I mean, obviously it would depend on your weight or your diet or whatever else too, but yeah, that's a neat thing. I mean, you could, I've said before, like keep track of how much you walk per month, but that's kind of boring compared to walking to the moon. Pretty cool. All right,
Yeah, I'm down
so
with that. That's a
I think we might be done. So we're going to recommend everybody, since Andalusia Armory is already over, keep that in mind. They do their shows on Tuesday. You might want to remember that and just listen to it at off time, or if you're listening to this as a podcast, consider jumping over to Andalusia Armory over on YouTube. It might be easier to find them if you go to Gun Channels. We have a rotating thing up at the top of the main page that shows all the live shows that are happening in the week. And if you don't know how to spell Andalusia, that you'll find it there as a link. Anyway, you can watch that anytime throughout the week, so you can listen to it as well. But now Night Strike and Smeggy will be doing the Hit or Miss show. They started about 15 minutes ago, and they'll be running for a bit. We also have Big Gunner out of Illinois that does the his podcast or his show today. Tomorrow, Jimmy James will be on. He's been doing the early watch on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays because he's got cover for some people at his 9 to 5. So tomorrow will be one of the days that the early watch will be back. Stay tuned for lots of conversation in the mornings before the other shows start up. Sometimes there's a lobby between that one and our show. We'll be back here 7 p.m. tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific.
All right. Well, if nobody's got anything else, I'll close this one out with our quote of the day. Let's see. Before I do that, this one's by Theodore Roosevelt, though. But before I do the quote, I just want to thank everybody for watching and listening, and remind you, if you can, please like, subscribe, share. You can share us on the, get us out there. So anyway, the quote by Theodore Roosevelt, one of my favorite presidents. I have a lot of them though. No man is worth his salt who is not ready at all times to risk his well-being, to risk his body, in a great cause. Theodore Roosevelt. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. We'll see you all tomorrow.
The guys and gals of GunWebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching GunWebsites.com.